You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
That could be the unofficial motto of the show. Just hit record and see what the fuck happens.
In fact, that's the new name of the show.
That is, yeah. I apparently changed. Yeah. I changed the name of the show apparently every month, so that'll be the new one for now. Is just see what the fuck happens with Chuck-a-Luck.
And Dusto. Don't forget Dusto.
Chuck-a-Luck and Dusto.
Well, I'm not on every episode, but I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, so we've got some returning guests. Coast to Coast is just like a greatest hits album so far. We had Molly Coffee, and now we have some amazing people that we've had on the show before. Why don't you introduce yourselves real quick?
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Amy, you do it. You do things.
No. Sure. So I'm Amy Taylor. I'm a filmmaker. Oh no! What am I?
What else are you? Yeah,
I'm co-writing the script with Liz, and so I think that's why we're on here together.
Where are you coming from?
Liz.
Where are you coming from right now?
Where am I coming from? I am coming from sunny Virginia.
Nice.
It is sunny today.
Oh, okay, sure. I'm Liz Manashil. The script that Amy was referring to is called Best Friends Forever. We started it in 2020, and we're headed towards production in February 2024. And I am an independent filmmaker. I've made 2 features, tons of shorts, directed for a TV show along with Amy. I used to work at Sundance, and that's how people know me. And I co-host a podcast called Making Movies is Hard.
Which has been blowing up like crazy.
Has it? Like, I don't feel that way. In fact, I was going to have like a real conversation with everyone today to be like, please, we're like, can we stop? Can I do less? Can I do less for this podcast?
I feel like I see it everywhere though. But nice. maybe it's like Atlanta Film Chat. People would tell me. I would go out to industry stuff here and they'd be like, oh, I see it everywhere. I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't think you do.
It could be something else with a similar name. You could just be blowing smoke up my butt. But yeah, in general, I don't think we're blowing up. But that's very nice of you to tell me something like that. That sounds nice. That's a good world to live in.
We've had some great, interesting guests, so even,
there's some value.
Whatever. It's interesting conversations, whether people want to listen to it or not, but I think they are.
I hope so. Oh, God, then why am I not doing it? Anyway, yeah, we're on a different podcast, not talking about that one. No need.
Well, everyone should probably at least bookmark that show to go listen, or just go ahead and pause this and go listen to that podcast instead.
Yeah, it's a good plan
because it's really good. And like Amy said, the guests are amazing.
Oh, and you never know, there might be spoilers, so you want to listen to the whole catalog and then come back to this.
Yeah, all 400 episodes would be great if you could do that right now. Thank you.
Yeah, just delete Atlanta Film Chat off your Spotify.
The two can't exist in the same world, so you have to displace one.
There can be only one.
There's only so many hours in a day.
That's true. Dustin with the hard-hitting facts.
Yes, hard-hitting facts.
So I like to start off the show these days just by asking, what are we watching out there? Any good TV shows or movies or maybe some new media that you're checking out?
Oh my gosh. I just am almost through Poker Face, which is a fun little mystery show. So I enjoy that a lot. Oh gosh, what else am I watching? I feel like I just watched a movie and I don't know what it was. So I guess it wasn't that memorable.
Sounds good so far.
Yep. Very good. I just started watching Foundation on Apple Plus, which I've heard no one talking about. But
what's it called?
Foundation.
I've never heard of this.
Based on the Isaac Asimov series of novels. But it's got a second season. So I was like,
did it really?
It has a second season, so I should catch up on
the only thing I've heard
season.
about it is that it's not faithful to the book. That's the only thing I've heard about it.
Oh, interesting.
But I've never read the book, so I have absolutely no idea.
I've only watched the first episode. So I'm like, well, the premise at least is faithful to the book.
Who's in Foundation?
Lee Pace, baby.
Oh, that's why. That's why you're watching it.
Yeah, that's why I'm watching it. But also Jared Harris, who's always very great. Yeah, actually, that's the only two that I recognized. But yeah, so like, I'm intrigued. Check it out. Somebody should talk about it. Why is no one talking about it?
Well, speaking of shows that no one talks about, I watch Willow. I'm in the very last episode of Willow.
Oh, yeah.
I think I know, guys, it may come back. It's not definitive. Like, we don't know for sure. It's genuinely one of the best things I've seen on television the past few years and no one talks about. It's so charming and whimsical and heartwarming and lovely, and I love it so much. So I'm watching Willow.
My guest last week, Nicole Kemper, she went. Yes. She just loves Willow.
I started watching it because we're friends on Twitter, and she wouldn't stop talking about it, and so I started listening. Yes, I think she's the reason why I watch it.
She's gonna love hearing that because she is like the advocate for Willow.
Oh, it's so good. It will come back because of us.
Yeah, you gotta start the buzz here.
Yeah, this is the
Save Willow.
Hashtag Save Willow.
Hashtag
Save Willow.
Dustin, what are you watching?
Not Willow. I am watching.
Shame on you.
Part of the problem.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. Well, here's the issue. I watched the film, and I'm thinking, because I was super excited about the show, and I loved the movie as a kid, and I watched the movie on Disney Plus right before the pilot comes out, and I watched the pilot. I was like, what is this? Like, it doesn't even feel like the same thing, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to finish it now because Liz says so. That being said, the last thing that I watched was Cocaine Bear, which was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Love that film. Yeah, it's great. You should check it out. It's basically about more or less where I grew up. So that's one of the main reasons why I love it so much. I think that's fantastic. So if you haven't seen Cocaine Bear yet,
it's funny.
Go watch that.
Just a serenely accurate portrayal of Dustin's childhood.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. That's such a funny thought.
That's exactly what it is. No, I mean, there's a kid in that film, and I'm like, yeah, I'm that kid. The Cocaine Bear. Check that out.
Cool.
I just killed the podcast, by the way. Chuck, you want to save it?
No, it's great.
Chuck, what are you watching?
I finally started. So last week, last episode, I talked about how I started watching Ted Lasso finally, and I'm all caught up on that. So
you're on the new season now too?
Yeah.
Okay, good job.
But now I started watching Succession because it's apparently ending.
It's great.
So I just started that show. First couple episodes were pretty good. So might keep on that.
No,
pretty interesting.
I won't join that bandwagon.
No good?
Just for what it's worth. I don't know if this could spin off into a better conversation. I'm just trying to say something controversial. I only watch things that make me feel good, lately. Okay. And so
right.
Succession just feels like something that wouldn't make me feel good. And that's why I won't even try it. Does it make you feel good, Chuck?
I'm not very far into it. I wasn't sure the buzz around the show is that it's a crazy comedy or whatever, and hard hitting expose on business world and stuff. The first two episodes. I don't know. I'll have to catch up to you about that and just to see where I am, because there was one joke in there that I almost like did a spit take laugh.
There's jokes.
The second episode.
Yes. It's not.
Someone should have just told me that from the beginning.
It's not a hard hitting drama.
And Mr. Darcy are hilarious.
It's definitely not.
I'll watch things with jokes, even if they're dark, as long as there's jokes.
Well, it's definitely a dark family
that helps.
situation.
That helps.
Yeah. It's not like a goofy, like silly rom-com or anything, but it's definitely like, especially if you've worked in the corporate world and you get some of the like more corporate jokes about like the language and garbage that gets said around the business.
Yeah.
And
Brian
it's
Cox
good.
is great. It's a great show.
It's pretty good.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Another show that I'm looking forward to coming back is Barry.
I don't watch that either. It's too good for me to watch. You're just hear my neuroses in this conversation so far. Like that's what I'm bringing is like that's too good for me to watch.
Too good. So it goes from like too sad to too good. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I need like just slightly above mediocre and charming is what I need in my life. Barry genuinely seems so fantastic. Like,
it's just.
And also, I have a problem with finishing shows. Like, yeah, like I watched almost all of Catastrophe, and I can't finish it. Like, I can't finish things that are good.
Well, so if you finish it, it's like
over.
It's done. Yeah.
So I just feel like if I start Barry, then I eventually have to finish it, and that seems sad. So I won't do it. Oh God, guys!
Running into an existential crisis.
Just watch the first 2 seasons, and then you're good.
Why do I contribute?
No, you're great. Any other hard hitting questions, Chuck, other than what we've watched in the last day or two?
No, that was the hardest one.
That's the podcast, folks.
Yeah, tell us about Best Friends Forever. Tell us about Best Friends Forever, specifically. Amy, you're still in Virginia. Liz, you're out in rainy LA.
Yeah,
is it still raining there?
No, not right this second, but it will tomorrow and the next day.
It's
so this is one day. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, LA and their rain. You know how typical that is.
This is Seattle.
Talk about since this is coast to coast, this is an episode of Coast to Coast because Dustin's out in the West Coast and I'm over here in Atlanta. Talk about your workarounds about not being in the same room, even in the same city together.
Sure. Well, I could set up some context for the conversation, and I'd love to. I know Amy has a lot to contribute to how we found our strategy of writing together. I had a nightmare during the pandemic about some of my best friends from film school all coming to a house with a haunted relic and us all like killing each other. And I was like, hey, that sounds fun. And we should turn that into a movie. And so I vomited out a first draft and I realized this is not good. I need someone who's good on board to make it better. And so I approached Amy and asked her if she wanted to.
She couldn't find anyone to do that. So she said, Amy.
Not true, Amy. And I approached Amy and she was very kind and generous and decided to be co-writers on this process with me. And throughout the pandemic, I just wanted to set up the context because that was 2020 and we're now in March 2023 and we finally have a draft that we've been sending now. It took, I would say, like a meaningful amount of time for us to feel, or at least for me to feel like we had something that was shootable and that like true quality that we both love. But Amy, if you could take over with the actual answer to the question, that would be nice.
Oh, I've forgotten the question. But yeah, we just met over Zoom for the first. I mean, we've been meeting over Zoom like once or twice a week ever since
for like 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
3 years now. That's great. And yeah, we would just discuss the idea and discuss the characters and tell stories about like our own friendships and sort of feel our way through like what did we both feel was genuine to these characters, what did we want to say about friendship, all those sorts of things. And then we would go away and write our little pages and then come back together and discuss. And we sort of did that handing off process for 2 years at least.
Yeah.
And then at one point we went insane and we were like, this draft is not working. And we did this whole other draft that was like very different.
Balls to the wall draft.
It's like insanity. And then we were like, oh, what are we doing? We came back around a little bit to what we have now. And it all sort of felt like it was clicking into place more after that explosion of insanity. So maybe we just needed that in the process. And we this year, well, no, this year is 2023. Oh boy. 2022, we got this draft that we felt really solid about. that we were finally like, we can show this to people and not
it
be
took 2 years.
embarrassed.
It took 2 years
Yeah.
to get to the draft that we were very proud of, and now we're headed towards production.
That's awesome. And I mean, just making anything is such a labor of love. You know, just from writing to anything, and just keeping it going over those long years. And it's fun. It's funny you talk about not feeling like it's right, and it's such an intangible thing. Writing a draft and you just feel like, oh, this one just doesn't. You know, I've got like a graveyard of my own scripts in my computer, and I'm in notebooks and all over my house and everything, of just like, yeah, I was clicking along, and then all of a sudden I was like, I'm not feeling this one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that is. Maybe, I mean, I'm sure you two have the same thing where you're just going along and you're initially just so excited about something, and then all of a sudden you hit a wall and you go, you know what? This is not working for me.
Well, I can say that anyone listening to this podcast can already tell that I am a difficult person and who overthinks a lot. And imagine being in a writing partnership with that, just to kind of put, just like put the noggin in that scenario. And I just want to acknowledge that, because Amy had to experience my waves of like, oh God, what are we doing? When are we going to get there? Like just all those questions that you ask yourself, Chuck. Like I was asking them aloud to Amy, expecting her to be this oracle to tell me when things would be better.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it got there, but eventually she has just like an unwavering stability to her, Amy. Like whatever, she could speak to some self-deprecating comment that she's going to make about how she doesn't, but she does. And I would say like, it was through those 2 years of talking it out and going through the neuroses and questioning every single decision that we got to the place of confidence. And I also think you could reverse engineer confidence by just saying, this is the script, even if it's not ready, but you can just say like, this is the one, I know this is the one I want to make. And then all of your resources and imagination and time start to go towards that project. At least that's what it takes for me. It takes both sides, like putting the time in and then like manipulating myself to believe it's worth it.
I mean, I don't know. It was like sometimes we would have an idea and we would just have to write it out and see how it played out. And it was like, this might be very wrong, but we just got to write it out and see. And then a lot of times it was very wrong. We'd be like, okay, trying something new, but we just had to get it out. So that it could stop like interfering with the other ideas. And I don't know. I mean, you're talking to someone who like, this other script I have is on draft 34. So like, I trust the process to eventually get me there, and that it will continue to like refine. And so you're not just treading water through drafts. You're always improving. Even if you feel like, oh my gosh, we're never going to make it. So yeah, I mean, what are we on draft? Like we're not even.
I stopped counting. We stopped counting.
Not even hardly double digits.
Are you counting? Because I'm not.
Well, no, that's how I save it in folders.
Oh my God. Please tell me.
I think we're on, let me check. I think we're on draft 10.
That's good to know. That
I don't know if that's
I didn't know that.
I don't know if, I feel like there was some like A's and B's in there, but yeah.
Let me ask this then. What do you constitute as, you sound someone who is extremely organized, Amy, and I'm jealous that I don't have that.
Like I got a few folders. Let's not get carried away.
Well, I mean, even that. But like, what do you constitute? You're constituting a draft. Is it? You're not talking about a full page one rewrite of each time. You're thinking major scenes switched over and stuff. Like, oh, let's try this major scene switch, that kind of thing. Or are these page one rewrites each time?
They're page one revisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, each of these I think that I have in like separate folders are sort of page one, and some of them are more extreme than others, obviously. But yeah, they're pretty like, that's what constitutes a draft for me, is that you come to a place on one draft and you're like, okay, great. we can pause and like get notes from someone.
Okay. Yeah.
And then when we open it back up, then I say that's a new draft, even if we were only changing small things at a certain point. But once we've had notes,
there's like a closure to the process, like a sequence to the writing process itself. I also want to acknowledge that part of the reason, at least I had such a hard time getting to a point of confidence, is the horror genre. So this is a horror comedy, and I like, all my other projects that I've written were like autobiographical romantic dramedies based off of like my own romantic history. And so it was always very confusing to me that anything could happen in a supernatural horror film. And I'd always be asking Amy. Amy would be like, we'd put like a witch character, I'd be in there, and I'd be like, but where does the witch's powers come from? Like, I would ask these questions that were like unanswerable questions that would create like, mini moratoriums of creative process, because the genre allows for so much freedom. But I don't know if either of you have had that issue, and ultimately sometimes we just had to be like, they have power because they have power, because they're a witch, and that's okay.
Yeah. Amy, do you want to?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I know, because it's like we're doing a film and we want it to be this like great thing, and then you can get dragged down. Well, I say dragged down, but like these are TV shows I love, but sometimes it was like verging on very like CW, WB. It's like there's a plot of Buffy for everything. So you're like, is this too Buffy? And it's like, well, I love Buffy, but that's a TV show. It's a different thing. It was made, 20 some years ago now. So it was like, we don't want to go to that direction, but we also don't want to get too mired down in like specifics, and we're wasting all this time like saying the mechanics of what the supernatural rules are. Like, we just need to do the bare minimum so that it makes sense. And provides the scares that we need. We don't need to get too like, I don't know, it's the balance of what's too much explanation for the audience and what's not enough, which has been hard to find, honestly.
Dustin and I are working on a feature version of Driv, his short film and then web series. And Dustin can talk more about this, I guess, but just trying to figure out how much of, because it's the basic premise is this rideshare driver is a crazy serial killer. So, but then you start asking questions, the basic questions of like, how did this person get to this point, kind of thing. And there's no, I don't think there's ever an easy answer to that, because it's a very complicated question, especially for a movie. And it's nothing probably hasn't been done before. Is his parents or whatever. So like, we're going through like, how much do we show? We have all this backstory that we don't show, but we at least know it, and the actors can go off of that. Dustin, what do you think about all this?
I think that when you're dealing with horror and maybe to a certain extent the fantasy genre, you don't have to worry about coloring inside the line, so to speak. I think that Liz is right. You do have a certain amount of freedom. So I don't know. Like, for instance, you talk about what we watched recently. The other night I was at the Academy Museum, name drop, and I was watching The Shining for the first time on the big screen. I was watching that, and you tell me what the fuck is going on a good chunk of that film and why it's happening. And you can't do it because
we have talked about The Shining a lot.
Yeah. Kubrick goes off in a different direction than what the book does, right? So his variation of that, and there's a whole documentary on this, his variation of what's going on is different. And I think people buy into it because there's something that's stuck in reality, which is the idea, the fear of a member of your family trying to murder you legitimately. There's ghosts, sure. There's blood coming out of the elevator, sure, that happens all the time. There's random skeletons with cobwebs all over the place. You're not really worried about that. You're worried about Jack Nicholson with the axe. And I think as long as you have something in there that's like based in reality, people will sort of overlook hotel. There you go. Sort of not weigh in on the other crazy shit that's going on because, hey, I would hate it if my dad tried to murder me with an axe. So there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about The Shining a lot. Like, yeah, it is vague. What's happening?
Wait, we did? You and me?
Yes. Oh, do you not remember all the conversations about The Shining?
I don't remember stuff about The Shining.
Oh, too traumatic. Blocked it out. Well,
that hasn't thought of me. Like, honestly, I don't have access to that. That's crazy.
That's so funny because
this is what children does. Children do this. I can't even use English. They take away your ability to speak English, and then they take away your memory completely. Anyway, so yeah, I guess we talked about The Shining a lot, and it was really edifying.
Oh no, what if my memory's the one?
No, it's not. I think we all know that it's not.
What if I'm gaslighting you, Liz?
I'll go with it. I'm in.
Okay.
I think there's very little like repercussions to this gaslight.
Yeah, it's a low stakes gaslighting.
I'm on board.
But it also goes, I mean, when you're watching a Kubrick movie, whether you like the movies or not, at least that you're in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing.
Yes.
And then opposed to other movies where the same amount of detail is given to the killers or whatever, and like, this just sucks. Like, I don't understand what's happening, and this is a bad thing. Like, there's a fine line between someone watching a movie where like, oh, this is purposeful, and another one where like, oh, these people are just nonsense garbage.
I agree. I actually think part of it has to do with pace. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why Kubrick is an amazing, masterful filmmaker. But if you slow down the pace of your film and you make everything really seem, or at least appear intentional, right? Like there's a confidence that comes with that, like a confidence to like a stable, really clearly composed camera, like all these things. I think with like the advent of like fast cutting and too much plot, you start to feel really insecure with that filmmaker. So I these are just things I'm thinking about is like, what are the tenets of a great filmmaker? And it's like having the confidence to not show everything all at once and to go at the pace that they feel like the story needs. But that might be too vague for right now.
Interesting though, because what we talked about on this latest draft was just the idea of like, we had too many ideas for our characters. And we just sort of pulled back and simplified their backstories and character arcs, and tried to get, just like right down to the nitty gritty of what we wanted to say, and just like let that, be the thing and not complicate it with all these other. Oh, our main character had so many issues.
Yeah, she had an eating disorder, horrible relationship with her parents,
so much.
childhood trauma. Yeah. And then if I read a script recently from someone else who had like overly dense plot or background to their characters, and it just reads as like amateur. Like if you were to read it as a stranger, it just like it's almost irritating. Just like, don't tell me so much. Let me sit with just a little bit because it's more poetic that way. I mean, I know we're making a horror comedy, but it could still be poetic. Damn it. Maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I don't know if you're like me. Whenever I'm writing a horror movie, as a huge horror buff myself, I always feel like I want to add to. I don't want to be too derivative in that. I want to make sure I'm adding to the horror like lexicon in a way. I'm like, I got to find a new kill. I got to find a new angle for a monster or whatever. Somebody's got to be talking about this in like a documentary 20 years later. I don't do that with anything else that I write. When people pay me like, hey, write this rom-com, I'm like, okay, who gives a shit? All right, goodbye.
I give a shit about the rom-com. Make it good. I'm gonna watch it.
I want to make it good, but I don't have that in the back of my mind that of like, oh, I've got to make this so good that people are going to be studying it for. I just don't have that same thing in the back of my head for some reason.
I don't feel that way. I'd be curious if Amy feels that way. I think my whole thing is I like to put something in each movie that's like incredibly personal and a little gross. Like that's what's important to me. Like I really want to show like, you know, in my second feature, I made Ann Dowd pee on camera. And that was very exciting to me that I could get her to pee on camera. You know, in the first movie, there was like a lot of masturbation and that's not gross. But like, I went to screenings and there were people at the screenings who were like groaning and looking away during the masturbation scenes.
But that says more about them, though.
It does. And this movie has like, there's like a really fun pillow oral sex scene because that's great. And then there's lots of hairy legs, which I'm very excited to show on on screen. So for me, it's more important to show aspects of what it's like to be a woman that's not on screen a lot, more so than like horror elements. But Amy, I know that like I feel like we talked about this. Like how can we contribute to the genre?
Well, yeah, I mean, we wanted to, have our own voice and make it, not just like the kills. We don't want to just be like, oh, stab, stab, stab. Okay, that one's dead. Do. We want to make it memorable, of course. And yeah, it'd be great if they talked about us in documentaries years from now, like, oh, they kicked off a trend of these types of horror movies. But yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, so many things about being a woman are horrifying anyway. So it's kind of like, if we just show this.
Like hairy legs, I guess, apparently.
Isn't that nuts? That like no hairy legs are never on screen. I just think that's so funny. I'm like so excited to show hairy legs. Like that's pushing me forward.
I mean, I keep an eye out now.
You're pushing cinema forward. I don't know how many times it's been used, maybe ever. I've never seen that in a film, I don't think.
Well, most European cinema probably. They at least got the underarms.
Yeah,
I mean,
that you see, but hairy legs, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen that.
I think about Human Nature, that like Charlie Kaufman movie with Hilary Duff, which is all about body hair. And I love that movie. Like I love seeing women with body hair on screen. That's another conversation. But it is important to me to show different versions of what it is to be a woman other than like these like cookie cutter, like stick figure, lipo, like I'm thinking of big lip ladies are what I'm thinking of right now is what you see a lot of. Is that a good description of lipo big lip?
As long as it's in the script.
Yeah, you paint it.
It's in the script.
Yeah. Dustin, what would you say drives you as a director? Anything like Liz is saying, or just pure mayhem?
I like mayhem, dude. Chaos is great. I mean, I don't know. That's a great question. I'm not exactly sure what drives me as a director. As a writer, I feel compelled to have some sort of reflection of society back at it. That's what drives me in that direction. As a director, the job itself is just fucking fun, dude. Like, there's no other way to put it for me. Obviously, I want to do stuff that...
Is it?
Yeah, I think it is. I personally think it is. Now, maybe for some people, they're pulling their hair out and getting asked so many questions drives you nuts. But there's like this feeling of accomplishment when it's done that I don't think you can find in any other gig. And maybe that's just, an ego stroke. I don't know. But that's sort of how I feel about it. And just to see your finished product, you're like, man, that got done. And clearly it wasn't just me. You've got these credits here that have a bunch of other names. But you're kind of in the middle of the machine. And if you're not there, does any of this happen? It's crazy. Filmmaking is just crazy. I enjoy it quite a bit. But in regards to writing specifically, I feel like I need to be saying something. Director for hire, it's a little bit different animal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure, but I mean, I get hired for writing gigs, and I still have to find an in with quotes. I'm doing quotes right now. You can't see them. Into the script to put myself in that, because I want to do the best I can. There's always going to be just a little bit of myself in whoever's hiring me for whatever rom-com or whatever script. I'm bringing that up because I wrote one the end of last year. And it's like this racing movie, and it's nothing, honestly, nothing like I've written before, but still, there's a little bit of me in there, and I have to find that in some way to be able to relate to it. Otherwise, it just it feels like cold to me, I guess.
That makes sense.
Well, you want to put out quality work, and
sure, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you could. There's like plug and play, but that doesn't feel like quality. You want to feel like you really, really put something of yourself in it. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't think I can. I don't know if a project is not sort of speaking to me in some way, then it's just like, I mean, writing in general is torture, but it's more torture.
Yeah.
I like having written. Isn't that what they always say? I don't like writing. I like having written.
I can feel that. That's understandable. Again, it's the finished product.
No, that sense of accomplishment that Dustin was talking about directing, I get when I finish my first draft, and I'm like, well, this is perfect. I'm a genius.
No notes. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, no notes wanted for sure. But I definitely get that love. Like, yes, I still get that. I remember the first time I ever completed a script, and I was like, yes. I still do that little fist pump once in a while. Just like, yeah, let's go. Because you have to have something to hold on to, because the rest of this is a nightmare. So.
The rest of it's rejection and notes that are like, actually, this is terrible.
I feel like I've had a slightly different experience in that I judge my first two films almost as a race, like a race to get them done, because I kind of thought like this was a volume-based business, and the more I got done, the more like I could break out, so to speak, that elusive breaking out. And only now am I starting to think like, no, the goal is to make it good. Like I tried to make the other films good, like at a surface level, but I don't think there was like a real audit to like, am I doing the absolute best I can at every single level of filmmaking? And like my team did their best, but I think for this project, and Amy's all too aware of this, I'm like trying to make it a sensory experience on every level. Like I'm really trying to figure out, how do we make these visuals different? How do we make the soundtrack exciting? How do we create momentum? How do we make people feel the movie instead of just watch it cerebrally, but like feel it in their bones? And I just think it's interesting. Like these are probably all questions that the three of you all ask yourself at every single level of every project. But I was in such a race that I didn't ask myself these questions until now.
Well, it's kind of a catch-22, I feel like, because if you don't, I don't know, it's like if you don't have something done, no one wants to give you the chance to do something.
Right.
So then you're trying to get something done just to have credits so that people will give you the time and money to be able to do something really great. But then, of course, if you haven't like burst out of the gate with your masterpiece, I don't know. It's very frustrating.
Well, I think a big part of it is me and Naomi McDougall-Jones just wrote an article about this, where it's like there's these filmmakers who we call it, they're on the I think it's called the golden elevator. She calls it the golden elevator. And the golden elevator is like getting the Sundance Lab or getting representation from a short film or doing these mentorships or these shadowing programs. You're kind of on this golden elevator of support where your first project already has like the systemic embrace. But if you don't have that golden elevator support, it's incredibly hard to do what you just said, Amy, right? Mm-hmm. Like to come out the gate swinging with a hit. And so it's like, it almost feels like then the long game is the only option for every other person. but still, like you should still be not looking at as a race. Like, and it should be about creating art that you're incredibly proud of, not that it's just like you're half proud of and it's done and you can celebrate that it's over.
Yeah, Nicole on Kemper, I mentioned earlier, last episode, she said that I think it was a friend of hers compared making films to paintings. You should view them as a paintings, because if you're painting a painting at home, you're doing it because, oh, I want to paint this tree or whatever, and like I love painting and this is so fun, and like that should be your aim. If people love it and you get rich and famous, great, but
Right.
most people aren't going to do that, and maybe you sell a painting or something. But the goal should just be to create it and hang it up and be like, look what the fuck I just did. That's awesome. I painted that goddamn tree, the best tree that's ever treed. And that should be good enough, even though I know that's impossible for most of us, but that should be. That's the idea anyway.
No, I agree. I think that argument gets a lot of flack, especially in Los Angeles, right?
I bet.
I think that you should be making films for yourself, because we are wonderful critics and we are people of substance who are looking for high quality art. So you should trust yourself as an arbiter of quality. It's not selfish to make a movie for yourself, and most likely if you love it, a lot of other people will love it. The issue, you get into trouble when you have that conversation, distribution, which, like, I'm in distribution, I work in distribution, and if a filmmaker doesn't have a plan for how to distribute their film that they made for themselves, and they have expectations to make millions and trillions of dollars, that's like the real conundrum, right? Then you need to kind of like shake that person and be like, you didn't create that project for this marketplace with that in mind.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. The question I come up with is like, I don't know, you're very satisfied artistically by this film you've made, and that's fantastic, and like you could live forever just doing that, and like say 30 people see it but they love it and you love it. You could do your whole career like that, except the question is, how do you get the next one made?
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I can't just I want to be artistically satisfied, and in an ideal world, if I was a billionaire, I could just fund my own movies indefinitely. That would be amazing. Speaking of, are there any billionaires listening to the podcast who'd like to fund me indefinitely?
That's my primary audience,
That's what
billionaires. So yeah.
Well, actually,
That's
I'm
why we're
glad you
here,
brought that up.
by the way.
Yeah.
I was hoping that someone would open a doorway to this question. So you have a Patreon, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So please discuss that.
Yeah. So we created a Patreon for Best Friends Forever. I will say I created it because I'm not giving any money to Amy, so I'm just Amy and I have our own arrangement for compensation outside of the Patreon, but I just
sounds so shady.
It sounds so shady. But I also don't want to make it seem like Amy and I created this Patreon together and that we're equitable in the Patreon. I'm fine shadifying myself at this moment. I created this Patreon because I wanted to document the making of this movie as a case study for other filmmakers. My whole thing is data. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. My whole thing is data transparency and just like extreme candor in the independent film world. And so what I'm doing is I'm documenting and memorializing the making of this film. Amy's participated very kindly and very generously in recording some of our feedback sessions. I also record meetings with producers, with my creative coach. I talk about our schedule, our budget. We did a table read, which we recorded. This is all to say, like, this is not necessarily a money-making scheme. It's $1 a month is what we're asking from Patreon patrons. And we're just putting it behind a paywall because it seems to incentivize participation if people pay money to do something. And behind that paywall, I have this kind of like sheath of secrecy where I can pretend to disclose how to make a movie to the Patreon backers. But ultimately, we're trying to build a community.
Yeah, you're not wrong about you got to give some a money option, because people don't sign up for free things. It's like trying to give a free bed away online or something. Like,
right. No
just
one
come
wants
get this
it.
couch. Just come grab it. But if you charge like $5,
Right.
they're like, oh, $5 couch. I don't know what psychology that is, but it's very true. It's ridiculous.
Literally invested. You are literally invested. That's what it is.
Literally,
Yes.
Literally invested.
Well, Liz, I know you got to run, so we can go ahead and start shutting this down. But before we go, tell everybody where to find all the information about you guys and your film and everything else.
Amy.
Oh no. Well, I mean, go support
Seems like
Liz's
every question starts out with "Oh no."
I'm always shocked that someone has asked me a question. Yeah, go support Liz on Patreon. I don't know what the link is.
Patreon.com/Liz Manashil.
Yeah, very easy. Yeah, and I mean, she's being very modest about how she just wants to document, but like she does all these AMAs, and you know, there's other filmmakers on there asking very interesting questions, and there's always an interesting conversation that sheds light on stuff that, you know, people don't talk about openly very much. It's always this secret, like, producers over here talking about distribution, and it's very secret, but it's stuff that filmmakers should know. So you'll get your dollar's worth for sure.
Thank you. But where can people find you, Amy? I was trying to tee up you.
Oh no.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I'm I'm on Twitter, going down with the ship, at Walking Candy Apple. And I do a newsletter monthly. So if you go to my website, amytaylordirector.com, you can sign up for my newsletter. And that's probably where you'll be able to keep track of me, surveil me closely.
Yes, you can find me on my Patreon, patreon.com/Liz Manashil. You can find me on Twitter. I'm also going down with the ship at Liz Manashil. I've just put too much time and energy into Twitter to give up now. I just won't do it. Or Facebook or email. You can just email me, lizmanashil@gmail.com. I do distribution consulting and sales for indie filmmakers. So I am planning to self-distribute Best Friends Forever, and the goal is to make us Amy included this time, not shadifying myself, to make us a buttload of money. That's the goal. And so if you're interested at all about indie film distribution, you could sign up for my newsletter, or you could sign up for the Patreon, or you could just email me and ask questions.
Oh, nice. Speaking of buttloads of money, I should probably plug this. So I am fundraising for my next film to direct. Liz is like, that's what I was trying to get you to say, dummy.
It's the billionaires.
I'm very bad at fundraising. So the project is fiscally sponsored, which means that any donations are tax deductible. So if you go to thefilmcollaborative.com, the project is called Everything's Fine. I think it's just thefilmcollaborative.com/everything's fine. But you can search it on their website. And donations are appreciated. You can find out all about the project. It's a rom-zom-com. Nice. And it should be super fun. Yay, I did it. I promoted something.
Good job, Amy.
It was great. Well, I really appreciate it. Dustin, anything you want to throw out before we go?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Dusto at LinkedIn.com.
Yep, that's it. LinkedIn/Dusto.com.
Yep. Please don't.
Well, I really
that
appreciate
website.
y'all coming on, and no, it was great catching up with you two, and good luck with the project. Can't wait to see it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thanks for listening to Atlanta Film Chat. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. The show is produced by Tranquil Aggression Productions and Zombie Cat Productions. Your host is Chuck Thomas. Editing is by Joshua Goldkey. The soundtrack is by Michael Breezy Keys Jones. I am your humble announcer, Rob Scheimer. Remember, you are your own biggest fan. So go out, make your projects, and don't let anyone stop you.